Landscapes of bewitching beauty. Unique, species-rich, exemplary. Because something extraordinary is happening here. These natural habitats remain intact only because humans use and shape them. A new pact with nature. Way up in northern Norway, just below the polar circle, people have always had to scrape a living out of the austere natural world. For a few months every year, the Vega Archipelago here is also home to wild eider ducks. They have entered into a unique alliance with humans. The fishermen and farmers cultivate the small islands and protect the eider ducks, in order later to harvest the feather down from the nests once the birds have left. But this unparalleled symbiosis of man and animal is now under threat. Can the Norwegians find a way into the future? At the beginning of April, the eider ducks return to the polar circle from their winter quarters in southern Norway. The males, with their black and white markings, and the inconspicuous speckled brown females, often travel in large flocks. In the coming months, they will search for food in the shallow coastal waters for themselves and their young. But their breeding places on land are largely unprotected. Their down-padded nests are exposed to wind and weather. And their enemies are lurking close by. Great black-backed gulls are just waiting for the right moment to steal an egg. And the sea eagle has its sights on the fledglings and also on the adult ducks. At first sight, the low-lying islets of the Vega Archipelago provide little protection. It's human beings that make the difference here for the eider ducks. For centuries, they have offered the wild birds an exceptional welcome. By the end of April, Erna and Eivind Øvergaard start setting up accommodation for the arrival of the animal visitors. Many of the simple wooden shelters have suffered through the winter months and need repair. On their part of the small island of Lånan alone, there are over 100 little duck houses, either in groups or as single apartments separate from the neighbours. The other human inhabitants of Lånan are also working on the eider duck housing. They gather dry seaweed from the shore, destined for the bird accommodation. Hildegunn Nordum was born and raised here till she was 16. She comes back to the island every spring and stays throughout the summer to look after the ducks.
When March arrives, we pack our bags and can't wait to get here. It's a good feeling to head for home. We never know in advance what we'll find. It's always exciting, year after year. When we come to Lånan in April, the ducks will soon be arriving.
And when the birds arrive, they need to find a safe and snug nesting place waiting for them. Hildegunn and her husband Erik pad out the boxes with dried seaweed. A total of 9 families return to Lånan in spring to prepare hatcheries for the eider ducks. The humans also benefit from it. If they can persuade the animals to breed on their land, they get to keep the valuable down afterwards. The people fit out over 1,200 nests with seaweed for the birds, even under their own houses. There's room here for nearly 20 animals.
Erik?
Any abandoned eggs that Hildegunn comes across from the previous year are buried outside to avoid attracting nest robbers. It's hard work, but it bonds people together and with nature. About 15 kilometers away in the south of the archipelago, one man is out and about in all weathers. He's the last islander to live more or less like his forebears the whole year round, as a farmer and fisherman. He too was born here. But unlike the others, Øystein Ludvigsen has spent virtually his whole life here on Husvær, a group of islands within the Vega Archipelago. At low tide, he can walk from his house to some of the neighbouring islands without getting his feet wet. When the tide's in, he uses simple wooden bridges to get to his sheep. They're an ancient Norwegian breed and are used to staying outside all the year round. Once they've exhausted the grass in one area, Øystein ferries them across to the next islet, as he has done for decades.
Ja da, vi var jo med og gjort oss til alt sammen, og det var jo...
We've always worked here on the farm. As a boy, I was allowed to shear the sheep and help in the cowshed. I could bake and cook meals. In summer, we collected gull and goose eggs. I've had a fantastic life. Perfect.
Perfekt.
On Øystein's island too, people prepare nests for the ducks. His partner, Snefrid, and her grandson Marcus are visiting and bringing a stone shelter up to scratch. But they are the only ones who gather seaweed here and set up duck houses.
Skal vi bare I gang igjen?
The island shows how difficult it is to keep up the eider duck tradition.
In the 60s, there were still nearly 2,000 eider ducks breeding here. Then it fell to 50 or 60 ducks at times. By then, we were the only ones that still had duck nests. All the others had stopped.
That endangered a unique tradition. So unique, in fact, that in 2004, the United Nations declared the Vega Archipelago a World Heritage Site. The archipelago is named after its main island, Vega. This is where most people live. There are streets, cars and shops, but no eider ducks. There's too much disturbance from the 1,200 inhabitants, and too much danger from cats, imported minks and other predators. So the eider ducks nest at a distance, on one of the 6,500 or so small and tiny islands in the archipelago. At one time, down from the eider ducks was harvested on 17 of the islands. At the turn of the millennium, that had reduced to just 3. Lånan, where Hildegunn and the other duck guardians live in summer, is the duck island par excellence. Here, about 20 kilometers north of the main island, the families have succeeded in maintaining the tradition. The birds return here in great numbers year after year. Still. By the beginning of May, everything on Lånan is ready. All the duck guardians can do now is just wait. Weather permitting, they meet up on the jetty every morning for stockfish and beer. In the winter, they live on the main island, on the mainland nearby, or even in the far-off capital, Oslo. But their work together for the ducks brings them back again and again. By now, the wild ducks are like close acquaintances, very much so in some cases. Hildegunn and the other guardians have noticed that some of the ducks return to the same little huts or nesting boxes year after year.
We have 2 eider ducks which always arrive together, year after year, on the same day. They nest over there, right next to each other, and they leave again with their chicks at the same time. We think they're sisters who stick together. We call them the veranda ladies.
Eider ducks can live to be 25. And some of them really do have distinct personalities of their own.
Last year, 10 ducks brooded here in the shed. One of them is quite special. One year, we noticed that one duck had more and more eggs in her nest. We watched her and saw how she went to the other nests and stole eggs. She'd take the egg in her beak, carry it to her own nest, and lay it under her. After that, we called her Spiteful Sarah. In May, I keep looking to see if Spiteful Sarah is back. As soon as she arrives, she digs a hollow to mark out where she wants to brood. Then she'll come back after a day or 2 and lay an egg. Then I know Spiteful Sarah is back.
Just when the waterfowl will occupy their nests, the people can never predict, even after all these years. They see small groups of ducks gathering off their island, but they don't come ashore yet. The right moment hasn't arrived for them to leave the water where they're safe. Then in early May, in the middle of the night, the time has come. They gather in large groups off the island. Then the first ducks come ashore. They've mated on the water offshore. The black and white males come with their partners, but it's the females who decide where they'll nest. While she checks to see if last year's brooding place still meets requirements, he waits patiently by. When the females begin to brood, the drakes leave the island and move on to molt. Then in September they will return to migrate south with the females. The female eiders line the nest with down plucked from their breast. Then they incubate the eggs for 4 weeks. At this time, Øystein Ludvigsen is busy further south, checking his gill nets. Like his forefathers, he earns part of his living from fishing. In his small boat, which has seen better days, he's often out and about in the shallow waters between the islands. When the weather's good, he also ventures out to the open sea. It's mainly cod that he's after, but he also catches haddock and halibut. Every spring in the past, he used to sail the 200 kilometers north to the Lofoten Islands to join up with large groups of fishermen. These days, he prefers to spare himself the weeks of grinding work. Here he can set his own working routine, even though fishing in the archipelago is no longer as rewarding as it used to be.
It's declined a lot. There are only 4 or 5 fishermen now. Those who fish the whole year round, and me, who does it as an additional income. It really got very difficult.
Why are the fish stocks dwindling? One man is researching the causes. Hartvig Christie is a marine biologist from the Norwegian Institute for Water Research. He's been studying the ecosystems on the coasts of Norway for decades. Every year, he and his colleagues dive in the underwater world of the Vega Archipelago. He's especially interested in how the kelp forests develop in the shallow waters. "50 years ago, kelp forests still covered a considerable part of the seabed around Vega. They are among the world's most productive ecosystems. Because of their biodiversity, they're sometimes called the rainforests of the seas. They are the nursery for many species of fish. But in the 1970s, in what's now the World Heritage region, dramatic changes took place. The green sea urchin spread rapidly in the archipelago within a few years, for reasons still unknown. Hartvig Christie has clear memories of this radical shift.
All at once, everything around the islands was covered with sea urchins, packed solid. These sea urchins feed on nearly everything that grows on the seabed, and have done for 45 or 50 years now. The whole seaweed jungle has virtually disappeared from the seabed. That's had major effects on the fish stocks, in fact, on all life in the sea.
This was a severe blow for the traditional way of life in the archipelago. Hartvig Christie estimates that the destruction of the seaweed forests in northern Norway has led to the loss of 300,000 to 400,000 tons of fish a year.
Cod fishing almost ground to a halt. Here in the archipelago alone, that costs around €1.5 million a year.
One reason why life on the small islands has changed so drastically since Øystein the fisherman was a child here. Back then, there were still 70 people living on his Husvær group of islands. There was a shop, a post office, even a school attended by the children from the surrounding islands. Nowadays, Husvær is like a ghost town. Derelict boathouses. The tiny school stands empty. And there's been nothing to buy in the shop for a long while. When Øystein tells how he used to help carry the food deliveries from the jetty to the shop with half a caramel toffee as his reward, it's a story from a bygone age for his grandchildren. It wasn't only the young people who left for larger towns and cities.
It was a total collapse. Also because the Norwegian state decided the islands should no longer be inhabited. Everyone should go. There were fewer and fewer people. In the end, there was only one neighbour who lived over there, and my mother, my father, and me. Then in 1988, my parents and the neighbour moved to the mainland. There was only me left.
It looks like the end for the ancestral way of life, with all its traditions, and for the landscape as well. But there is still hope. Gisle Ebbesen and his wife Turid run a farm with dairy cows on the main island. Like most of the inhabitants there, they didn't care about the life and culture outside in the archipelago for the longest time. Only when the area attained the status of a UNESCO World Heritage Site did they realize that the traditions and landscape here were unique in the world. Together with their daughter Henrietta, they're an example of new generations who are once again venturing out to the small islands. Like all the islands here, Store Emersøy has been in private ownership for centuries. In 2006, Turid and Gisle contacted the owner, and offered to take care of the only remaining house on the island. The former farmhouse had stood empty for decades and was in a pitiful state. Turid and Gisela began to repair it and made plans for a new incarnation. Without further ado, they decided to turn it into a living museum, offering visitors a journey through time back to the 19th century.
At first, we were only looking for a holiday cottage for us. But once we had the chance to buy the island, we decided to make it a place that showed how people lived here in the past.
The World Heritage status was the starting signal. That was in 2004.
It was a hard life out here in the past. That culture has rather fallen into oblivion. So we want to try and bring it to light again, so that the people who live here will be better appreciated.
When Gisela plays the Northland anthem on the old organ, it's also a sign of the pride that people are rediscovering in their culture.
My parents gave me the inspiration, since they often took me out to the islands. I helped bring the cows and sheep out. I collected gull and goose eggs with my father. That's a lasting influence. I'd like to make my contribution. I want what's here to have a future.
So 22-year-old Henrietta is set on being the youngest duck guardian in the archipelago. For the first time in decades, nesting boxes for eider ducks are being set up on this island again. How long it will take, though, for the ducks to come back, she doesn't know. In the course of May and June, the days get longer, the sun is warmer, and the wildflowers burst into bloom. On the main island, with its fertile soil, agriculture is in full swing. The wetlands on the main island and the broad shallows in the archipelago are a paradise for seabirds. It's the time when most species, like the oyster catchers and the common gulls, give birth to their young. With acrobatic aerial maneuvers, sea swallows pursue their prey. The warm sun invites common ringed plovers to enjoy a bathe in the sea. And under the watchful eyes of their parents, the fledglings of the Eurasian golden plover go exploring. The 21st of June, the longest day of the year. It's shortly after midnight, before the sun disappears beyond the horizon, to rise again just half an hour later. On white nights like these, it never really gets dark. High summer out on the small islands. Safe and sound in their man-made refuges, the offspring of the eider ducks announce their arrival. The female spends up to 4 weeks incubating her eggs. In that time, she's hardly left the nest and has lost more than a third of her body weight. When the chicks are finally hatched, they're kept warm in the nest until their plumage is dry. The duck guardians on Lånan are especially vigilant at this time. Hildegunn and the others do the rounds of the animals every day. Of the 1,200 nests, they check the ones where the ducks are still inside. The ducks are used to Hildegunn and aren't disturbed by her visit. They even seem to understand that, far from being a threat, the humans are there to look after them. The young eider ducks are now facing the most dangerous phase of their lives, the unprotected trek to the sea. The great black-backed gull is an omnivore and is just waiting to prey upon the young animals. As is the sea eagle, circling above. Any duckling that wanders too far away from its mother or ignores her warning calls is in danger. Hildegunn also watches over the passage to the sea and intervenes if necessary to scare off the voracious gulls and other birds of prey.
Hush! 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 Ah!
This time everything went well. On the water, the chicks are protected in the group. But sometimes the duck guardians have to intervene more directly. These ducklings have become separated from their mother. Together with her grandchildren, who are here for a week, Hildegunn tries to give the little waterfowls a second chance. She makes a new nest for the ducklings in a duck house, in the hope that the little ones can be safe here for the time being. Then perhaps an adult duck might hear the ducklings' cries and adopt them. Eider ducks are very social animals and often share the job of looking after their young.
Så det beste at vi ikke blander oss, men noen gang så må vi
It's actually better if we don't get involved, but sometimes we just have to. It takes some time before the young are big enough and the gulls can't catch them.
Eller stormåsen tar dem.
One duck after another leads her offspring down to the sea. They won't return to the nests until next year. Now the families on Lånan set about their harvest. From the empty nests, they collect the down that the mother ducks had used to line them. This is when it pays off that the nests were in the dry. All Hildegunn needs to do is remove the shells of the duck eggs. On occasion, ducks also nest in the open. Then the down is much more soiled. In any case, rough cleaning has to be done as soon as possible to preserve the quality of the down. It takes a duck guardian a couple of weeks to clean a kilogram of down. First it's dried, shaken and roughly cleaned, and then carefully plucked clean once again. On calm days, everywhere on Lånan, the people sit outside their houses, always with a ball of down in their hands. First they take care of their own harvest. The last step is then often done as teamwork. The fine down remains caught on what's known as the down harp. Dirt and bigger feathers are sieved off. This works because of the tiny barbs in the structure of eider down, which hold it together. They're also responsible for its exceptional insulation capacity. It's not just the down that comes from Lånan, but the end products as well. Duvets, pillows and gloves are handmade by Hildegunn and the others.
Ja, så tar det bare en sånn liten dott av gangen og fordeler.
To make just one duvet, Hildegunn needs the down from 50 to 60 nests. And that comes at a price, of course. A down pillow costs 400 euros. A duvet, 6,000 euros. The down harvested by all the families on Lånan is enough for around 20 duvets a year. Despite the high price, all the duvets are already sold in advance before the season begins. The duck guardians have only earned such princely sums since they've been on the internet and can sell their down products throughout Norway and the rest of the world. Fisherman Øystein and his partner Snifrid also enjoy the days of summer. When there's little wind, they too sit outside in the sun and clean the down. But their harvest is only a fraction of what Hildegunn and the others on Lånan bring in. Their down doesn't go to the outside world, but to friends and family every year. Øystein has never earned much money from the ducks. His main work is as a fisherman and farmer, and summer is the time of the traditional haymaking. On his rocky islet, that means hard manual labour. The hay is the winter fodder for his sheep. This traditional form of cultivation has shaped the landscape of the archipelago. Islands that are not grazed or mown gradually return to scrubland. On Øystein's island, though, the traditional triad of fishing, farming and down harvesting is probably nearing its end. His daughter and grandchildren come and visit, but they don't want to live and work here.
No one will take over my farm. They'd have to keep animals and go fishing. That's too meagre a life for them. Everything here will disappear. That's for sure.
Meanwhile, on the island of Store Emersøy, Turid and Gisela's daughter Henrietta is looking to the future. She spends part of the summer all alone on her parents' small island. It's her project.
I've long dreamed of living out here, to find out what it's like to live here. Then a job offer from the World Heritage Centre on Vega enabled me to live here, earn money and look after the eider duck nests.
An important part of her job is to campaign for life out here. She's documenting her summer project with her video camera, taking photos and producing a sort of diary on social media. She also presents her main purpose, attracting the eider ducks to live here again. For the first time in decades, new duck houses are being set up again on this island. Even though only 2 of the 27 new nesting boxes are being used in this first year, Henrietta sees her project as a success.
It's about making young people aware, showing them that a young woman here wants to maintain the tradition of the islands. They should see that you can come here to work with the eider ducks.
Life out here, though, especially alone, is a daily challenge. There's no fridge, no electricity, and no gas connection. Henrietta heats the house and often cooks with wood she's brought from the main island. Baking her own bread is very fulfilling. The houses on the island that are regularly occupied have much more in the way of comfort. But comfort is not what Henrietta is looking for. It's exciting for the 22-year-old to find out how well she can cope this far from civilization. But when the weather's bad and she's confined to the house, the days are very long.
It's been hard. It's been lonely. It's been good. I've got to know myself. And I've discovered how I have to live to get through the days well. I've tried to keep busy, and that worked well. I've really enjoyed it. Jeg har koset meg. Og jeg storkoset meg.
Fortunately, time and again, summer in northern Norway shows its warm and pleasant side. Then the archipelago just asks to be explored. Henrietta always has her camera with her to advertise what life out here has to offer. She keeps trying out new routes in the sheltered labyrinth among the islets. She seldom goes swimming though. Despite the enticing brilliant turquoise of the water, at a temperature of 14 degrees at most, it's a pleasure for only hardcore bathers. It's spectacularly beautiful, so Henrietta just can't understand why more people aren't attracted out here. Sustainable tourism would also help the islanders to make a living. That's not easy here. Henrietta's job is just for this one summer. Boats now regularly bring tourists to Lonan at least. Then most of the island inhabitants gather at the jetty to welcome the visitors. They're almost exclusively day trippers in summer, who want to see for themselves what has raised the Vega Archipelago to the status of a World Heritage Site. People are only allowed to visit the islands when no ducks are nesting there. Strangers would be too much for the animals, and at worst the ducks could leave their nests and never come back. So tourists have to settle for a short demonstration of nest maintenance.
But
the next attraction is already waiting. In a converted hayloft, there are stories from the history of the island.
De visste jo ikke om de var kommet fram, om de hadde fått gitt noe beskjed, og rullet opp hele motstandsbevegelsen på Helgeland. De likviderte jo...
And homemade down products.
Flere av de andre i det de kalte for Oladalens venner, var vel den gjengen kalte seg for.
The tourist business has become an important economic mainstay. The down harvest alone is not enough to provide a living, especially on the other small islands in the archipelago, which have far fewer eider ducks. Nevertheless, Hildegunn and her husband Eric are pleased when the tourist boat casts off and peace and quiet return. Even if the peace sometimes brings with it concern for the future.
It's hard to predict what will happen. Even my parents didn't believe anyone would take over the eider duck business. But we've done it. We have to see year by year how things go and do everything we can to ensure the next generation gets involved and understands how important this work is.
Generasjon eller folk videre kan ha interesse og skjønne hvor viktig det er.
It needs young people as well to involve themselves in the life of this beautiful but remote and lonely region, if this unique symbiosis between people and animals is to survive, and with it, the landscape that's shaped by it. People need prospects for this unparalleled natural paradise to have a future.
If there was some way of staying here and working with the eider ducks, if there was a permanent job, I'd jump at it. But it's not that easy.